Okay, thank you everyone and welcome to the January meeting of the New Jersey Butterfly Club. Tonight's presenter is Tom Halliwell and he's presenting on New Jersey damselflies. This program will showcase the beauty of what are typically very small and overlooked insects. Photographs will cover distinctions separating damselflies from their cousins, the dragonflies. Then we'll move on to note various damselfly behaviors in several groups of damselflies and their habitat. We'll spend most of the time in northern New Jersey, where a majority of species fly, but we'll also end on coastal plains for a few which don't make it up to North Jersey. So with that, I'm going to welcome Tom to the podium and I'm going to pull up his slides.
Thank you, Edmund. Is that all?
And I just need to share the screen. Okay, so everyone online should be able to see the screen. And Tom, take it away.
Okay, thank you so much.
We can turn down.
Can you turn one row more back?
We can, it's all
all
either this
or nothing.
Yeah. We did turn off the light front screen.
Why don't you turn it off and see how it looks?
Oh.
Okay.
Turn it off, turn it all off.
There we go.
Yeah. Perfect. Now, can I read my notes here? I think
don't know.
I'll be all right. Except, go over there for 1 second and turn them on. So are we broadcasting now, so to speak?
Yes.
Okay. Before we get started, is the camera there?
Should
Back
be, yes.
there?
Yep.
There are 3 books that are very helpful for damselflies. The best is, without a doubt, Ed Lamb's Damselflies of the Northeast. It's got 3 strikes against it, however. It's out of print. It falls apart, which is why there's an elastic band around it. And if you wanted to buy it used, the cheapest I've ever seen online is about $185, which means they don't have it. I mean, that's basically what it means. But you just can't get it. It's terrible, but it's the best book by far. It is fantastic. He's an artist. He just came out with, in October, the dragonflies of North America, which is spectacular. It's got like 2,000 drawings in it, and it is unbelievable. I think it's 2,000.
Somebody was holding it up.
What did they say? Ah, there it is. Edie's holding it up. There we go. Okay, but it's got no damselflies in it. Okay, the other 2 books that we'll mention, this is superb too. Dennis Paulson's Dragonflies and Damselflies of the East. Suffers for us because it's not the Northeast. It's a lot more stuff than you gotta look through. And it has dragonflies in it, which is nice to have everything, but it's also nice when you're looking for something in damselflies to have a smaller book. But what this has that Lamb's book doesn't have is it's got a tremendous amount of text, like on behavior, things like that Ed Lamb's book doesn't have all of that. And then there's Alan Barlow's book, The Field Guide to Dragonflies and Damselflies of New Jersey, which is also long out of print. He's the last person who gave a dragonfly talk here in 2010. That's when his book came out. So anyway, that's a little bit of your sources. If you can get this book and you're interested, get it. You probably can double your money overnight. Okay, I think we're set. Thank you, Chris.
This is if you need.
Oh, did that come from my way? Okay. All right, let's see where I'm gonna start here. I'm just gonna say a few words about the biology here, the classification. Damselflies and dragonflies make up the order Odonata, just like butterflies and moths make up the Lepidoptera. The Odonata are the damselflies and dragonflies. And we usually call them odes or odonates. Okay, just for the, if you hear me talking about odonates, I'm talking about damselflies and dragonflies, but tonight we're going to focus on the damselflies. If you thought close focusing binoculars were important for butterflies, wait till you get into damselflies. This beautiful dusky dancer is 1¼ inches long. And a lot of butterflies are only 1¼ inches too, but they're, you know, they've got some substance to them in width, and this is all one plane. So you really need close focusing binoculars. Unless you're Mike Tracy back there, who carries his monster camera around everything, does everything through his camera. The other thing is that you also need a hand lens, because there are some damselflies that you cannot identify with even close focusing binoculars. If you can catch them, sometimes you can pinch theirs, and since it's usually all in one plane, you can catch them if you're really good. And then you can hold them by their wings and look at their claspers, which are at the end. We're going to talk about this again. And those are often what you need to see for look-alike, some look-alike damselflies. Okay. Let's see where we're going. If damselflies are new to you, well, first of all, I got a little couple of pretty pictures in here, which shows you why you should be. Uh-oh, is it moving?
No, not yet.
Oh, I pushed the right button. Ah, there we go. People ask, why would you be interested in damselflies? Well, there are a lot of reasons. However, probably the most important one is that dragonflies are gorgeous. Not every one, but an awful lot of them are really pretty. Like this eastern forktail, which is super abundant, but we mostly never see them because we're not looking for them. The emerald spreadwing is a rarity, but just look at those blue eyes. I mean, isn't that cool? And this guy, this was taken at Bamboo Brook, and this azure blue, it is beautiful enough, but the setting as he floats along on an autumn leaf with this, admiring his own reflection, is pretty cool. So they're beautiful. But the first question everybody wants to ask is, what's the difference between a dragonfly and a damselfly? Now, you can focus on various things, but when you see a dragonfly like this great blue skimmer, number one, notice how wide his wings are. Number two, notice how flat his wings are held out. And number three, look how chubby his abdomen is. That's one set of things you look at. They look big and bulky. Compare that to an aurora damselfly, and it's got this skinny abdomen. It's got a bigger thorax than abdomen, but it's not nearly as powerful a thing. The thorax, of course, contains the muscles that work the wings. So if you're a dragonfly with the powers of flight that they have, you need a bigger cage for those muscles. Some other things you want to look for. Widow skimmer, or you all know probably most of you do know that. You see how the wings are flat out, the wings are broad and everything. But notice on this wing right there, where you can see it, where it joins the body, it's not really super narrowed. It joins it almost the same width as the rest of the wing. When you see a damselfly, oh, and damsels, of course, hold their wings most of the time above their abdomen. But you see you're looking at 4 wings here superimposed on each other. But if you look carefully, you'll see that each wing is narrow. It's kind of stalked. And that's another way to tell. There are a few damsels that don't have stalked wings, but most of the time they do. So it's a lot of this, when you put everything together, you get your differences. Look at the stalked wings here. It's very obvious, isn't it? The wings are narrow, the wings are stalked. And one more thing. Look at the eyes. They are separated. And they're separated so much that you could take another eye and stick it in between. Make sense? Okay, if you look at, I gotta hit the right button here. Okay. Vesper bluet also, right in there. It has that gap. Another damselfly. But now look at the shadow darner. This is obviously a dragonfly for all the wing reasons we've talked about. But look at the eyes. They touch each other. Now, there's a whole group of dragonflies that have separated eyes too, but the eyes are not separated so that you could stick another eye between them. Okay, so that's just a bunch of different ways. It's got broad wings, it's got no stalk really, and here where his 2 eyes are separated, you got a gap, but it's not big enough to put another eye in there. So that's how to tell dragonflies from damselflies. I gotta get my notes here. There's one thing that might get you a little questioning. You get something like this, and is it a dragonfly or a damselfly? Well, the key word that I should have put above maned snaketail is emergent maned snaketail. If you look right here, you see this, what's called a exuvium, which is the larval shell of this maned snaketail when he was in the water in his larval state. They crawl out of the water, sometimes on plants, sometimes on rocks, sometimes on different things for different species. And then he comes out, but he's got to sit there for sometimes hours, because look at the tiny thing he came out of. He's got to blow up his wings, just like, have you ever seen monarchs pump out their fluids? Okay, he's got to do the same thing. He's got to harden up and the wings have to be hard enough that he can fly. So he's rather vulnerable, of course, in this stage, but he holds his wings over his abdomen like a damselfly. And so if that's all you're going on, you'll make a mistake on that. But that is definitely a dragonfly with that huge abdomen and thorax too. Okay. Let's take a look at a damselfly and just look at what parts it has, its anatomy, so to speak. It's an insect, so it's got 6 legs. This is called whoa, I didn't label this one?
No.
Mike,
Double stripe fluid.
thank you. Double striped bluet, named for the 2 black stripes. Well, it's this little blue stripe in there that makes it into 2 black stripes. It's the only bluet, and bluet is a big group of damselflies, bluets. It's the only one that has that double black stripe. Okay, so we've got a head, like all insects, we've got a thorax, and we've got an abdomen. The abdomen, both in dragonflies and damselflies, has 10 segments. Okay, starting right there is segment 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and a little dinky 10. Okay, those become important, not tonight, but in the field sometimes, because you want to point out a particular spot on S8, segment 8, or segment 6. Okay. Segment 10 is really important because of this little thing here. It's really 2 things. There's another little piece down there. These are, they have technical names, but they're just basically the claspers. This is a male, and the claspers clasp the female. There's one on this side and there's one on the other side. There's a pair of claspers. And those claspers go into the neck of a female. He comes down, I mean, this is caveman stuff, but he comes down on a female and he clasps her by the neck. It's a lock and key thing, though. That's a key. The lock is the places that the female has already in her area behind her head. And they fit like a lock and a key. So when you've got species that are very, very similar, in fact, you can't tell them apart with your binoculars. If you are able to look with a hand lens at these, because this is a big one. The double striped blue, it's got a big clasper here for a damselfly. You can do that naked eye and see how big it is, and that helps you identify it. But you have to see the shape of the claspers for a few dragonfly, damselflies, I'll get it. A few damselflies that are lookalikes. Oh yes, S2. This is a male, as we've said. Only the males have the claspers, but only the males have these bumps here. That is the sex organs of the male. Secondary sex organs, they call them. Why? Because these don't produce sperm. The sperm is produced under S9. And when this guy's going to mate, he's got to transfer on his own the sperm from S9 to S2, because this is the part that's going to mate with the female and transfer the sperm. So he has to take his, pull up his abdomen to S2 and put the sperm in there. Then he can mate. And sometimes, in fact, most of the time, I believe, they do that while they're attached with this clasper to the female. Oh, it's very, very complicated stuff. We'll see some better pictures. Now I got to get moving here, or I'll be here all night. That's the close-up of these are the Circe, the upper claspers, and these down here you can hardly see are the paraprocs. And together, and there's two of each, together they grasp, I think, uh-oh, all right, that's right. Now when you look, there's a different species, but we'll talk about the wheel in a minute, but this is the male. Here is the female. There's her head. Notice his claspers go right behind her head. Okay, and here's where the mating takes place. That's S2 for him, S9 or so for her. But he has previously transferred his own sperm up into there. It ain't easy being a
What were those red things on the?
what? Oh, good point. Yeah, we'll see them. Come on. Okay, those are mites. And they are, sometimes you see them all along the whole, they're infested with these parasitic mites. And but they go about their lives as if they don't have mites, but they do. Too bad they can't eat them, but maybe they do. I don't know. I've never heard that. Okay, back to a dragonfly for some comparison of the wings. Dragonflies often have what are called patterned wings, in this case, black patterned wings, a banded pennant. Damselflies rarely have patterned wings. The damselflies are usually clear winged. They have, now remember, this is 4 wings superimposed here. Each one has a spot like this, or at least the 4 wings do. These are called, the stigma is the term we use, but it's got a pterostigma, something like that. But everybody calls them just stigmas, and nobody seems to tell you what they're for. They're just there. But dragonflies and damselflies have these stigmas out there. It may help to be a strengthening thing for the wing, but I don't know. This is one dragon, a damselfly, that does have a patterned wing. There's a group called the broad-winged damsels. Notice how broad these wings are also for a damselfly. It has the black pattern out there. How many, raise your hand if you've seen the ebony jewel wing. Okay, we'll see a couple pictures of that. That is basically all dark, isn't it? And in one sex has a little pattern to it, but anyway. Now, let me just see where I am again. Sorry about this. Okay, yeah, I know where I am. This is a damselfly larva underwater, and damselfly larva is as much of a hunter, a predator, as the adults are. That's the difference between butterflies and dragonflies and damselflies. The butterflies, other than the harvester larva, are not predatory. Damselflies and dragonflies are predatory at every stage of their life. As a larva, they eat mosquito larvae and other little tiny things in the water. And then when they come out as adults, they go for, I think, wait, is that a fly? That looks awful identifiable.
No, not to me.
I stumped them.
Something.
Yeah. Yeah, is it likely a fly though?
Cow.
Okay, put an X through that.
Fly with that yellow and black.
Okay,
Leaf hopper, maybe. It could be a leaf hopper.
okay, right. Now, remember, this guy is all of an inch and a quarter, inch to an inch and a quarter. So he's limited in what he can eat. Midges, gnats, mosquitoes, small flies and so forth. Same with this. Now, what am I doing? I'm touching the wrong thing. I went forward. Okay. Here's another one stuffing his face with, I called it a fly, but whatever. This is probably only 8/10 of an inch long. The female eastern forktail. But it's quite predatory. Now, this is in South Jersey because Ramber's forktail does not get up past Middlesex County. Probably are on the move though. This is one we're going to be looking for, hopefully in the future. But Ramber's forktail immature female is orange with a black area up at the top. And look what it's eating. There's an eastern forktail female here, but there's where it stops. The eyes are gone, the head is gone, and 2/3 of the thorax is gone. I have seen a number of predatory events, let's say, with dragonflies or damselflies. They always, in my experience, start at the head. It's like taking a piece of something out, start chomping on it. And I have seen them drop the abdomen. They don't want to be bothered. The muscles are in the thorax, and the eyes and all that's good stuff in the head must be. But in any case, some more predation. This is one of our most common dragonflies, the eastern pond hawk. And it is one that I have seen eat loads of butterflies and loads of damselflies. This again is an eastern pond hawk here. That's a male eastern pond hawk. And once again, he starts at the head and he works backwards. So damselflies is what we're talking about here, are both predators and prey. Birds eat plenty of damselflies. A lot of, I'm going to use the word tenoral here, which means those soft damselflies that have just come out of their larval shell, and they have to sit there for a long time and so forth. I have seen those poor things in spider webs numerous times. Even dragonflies can be caught in spider webs. You got to be a pretty strong creature to get out of those. Okay. So I had one line I was going to say back before predation, that when you watch damselflies, there's really two things you watch: food and sex. I mean, that's basically their life. Okay, now this is called the wheel, and this is when they mate. We went through that one picture before, so I don't have to repeat it. But here's where he's attached onto the female, and here's where the mating is taking place. And hopefully I even read something the other day that was incredible. The female may have had a previous engagement, okay, and some sperm from another male may be in there. And apparently there's, in S2 of the male, there are several little, like, Swiss Army knife-like things, okay? And one of them is to scrape out anything that's already in there, so that he can put his sperm in there into the eggs. And apparently the sperm goes in one place, and very, very soon the eggs are fertilized. So they don't have to wait around to have some gestation or anything like that. The gestation takes place externally after they lay the eggs. Interesting. Something I didn't know. I'm just going to run through a couple pictures here of the wheel, varying from very little. Powdered dancers, very common. You want to see powdered dancers, just go to a big river, decent sized river. The Musconetcong's got plenty of them. Of course, they're all along the Delaware, but they are a riverine species and extremely common and kind of fun to watch. I'll talk about that later too. Sweet flag spread wings in the wheel. And now I gotta see what's next. Why don't I look at the next picture? And
What percentage of the time do the females say no?
say then,
What percentage of the time do the females say no? Like butterflies, the females always say no.
they don't have much of a choice. I was saying it's a caveman thing.
I say,
Okay, the males, both dragonflies and damselflies, for the most part. I mean, most people that have watched them have seen a dragonfly, for instance, just come out of nowhere and grab a female that you didn't even see. And they go, boom, they go off.
but seriously, so the female can position herself that he grabbed her, but can't they move themselves so that he can't get, into the S2 segment properly?
Probably. But he may work on it because he has that little tool to scrape out the other things. But the answer is, I don't know that. I don't know.
This female hasn't put her.
No, you notice this one has not gone around. However, this is what's called tandem flight. And many people look at this when they see them. They say, oh, look at that big thing. And it's really two things, and they look at it and they think that's mating. Well, this is not mating, and it's usually post-mating. Okay. We're moving into now a little discussion of egg laying. And this is not where they would lay their eggs, because what's missing? Water, you're right. Where did the larva stage have to be? It always has to be in water with gills. I forgot to tell you, with that larva underwater, you'll see that again. I've only got one picture of a larva. I repeat it several times. But they breathe with gills, so they have to be near water. This is a tandem pair, which is not in flight at the moment, but they will fly. And that is one strategy for laying eggs. And I'm going to go into that now, I think. Yeah, here's another tandem pair. This is swamp spreadwings. And they're getting ready to lay eggs. And as I said, it doesn't take long. I mean, an hour later or less, these ones that were in the wheel mating, they may be off ready to lay eggs. Here are the swamp spreadwings again. That's not the same pair. And this is a pond. And these are emergent aquatic plants. And here is the tandem pair. And notice that ovipositor. That looks dangerous, doesn't it? She is going to cut into that plant. and deposit her eggs in the plant. And then they'll fly off and maybe find another place. I never know who's the boss here. I mean, most of the time you think it's the male, but she may have, I'll show you another picture later of something where I think it's her who's the boss. Now, this is our largest damselfly, by the way. This baby is 2.5 inches. This is called, if you could see here, great spread wing. Okay. It's a damselfly which we didn't have in New Jersey till like 1980 or something like that. Or maybe this one's even a little bit before that, but it's a southwestern thing that it made it. It's a huge expansion of its range toward the east. And it's not a common damselfly anymore. One of the places that's easiest to see it is one that the Wanderers found many years ago, and it's still there, which is really interesting. Most of the time, they like fishless ponds, and those kind of things, somehow the habitat changes or whatever. But this colony here has been there for what, at least 10 years, Wade?
Oh, yeah, probably. You're
Been
talking
where?
about Bamboo Brook.
Bamboo Brook.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've been there. They were there this year. And notice this is in tandem. Here's the junction where the claspers are clasping. And then she's bent around, but she's going for the woody plant here. Now, to make this work, the woody plant has to extend out over the pond. What good is a woody plant for them if when the larva comes out of the egg, it drops down into the leaves? No, these things lean out over water. Now I've got a close-up of this. This is the male's claspers here, and he goes up and he's up there somewhere. Her body goes up and comes back down. And look at that ovipositor. It's actually slicing into the red bark there, and she's going to lay an egg in there. That was a couple years ago down at Bamboo Brook, and this thing is leaning out over the water, so that will come out. This is the species that was on the title page, dusky dancers. And dusky dancers are riverine. And you get a calm place in the Delaware like this, and I had about 100 in a, several square yards. And they're all doing ovipositing, dropping these eggs. Notice each female got her tip of her abdomen down in the gook and the plants, the aquatic plants. The males are hovering. Some of them are hovering. You can't see their wings because they're moving, and others aren't. Depends how stable this all is. Well, I kind of got the feeling with this one that this was like a religious event. Or maybe a rock concert, something like this. But it's really fascinating. And they're in motion. I mean, this isn't silent. I mean, it's not like this picture, which is still. Well, these females, their abdomens are going like this, and it's really cool to see. Really cool. The powdered dancers that we saw on the wheel a little while ago do the same thing. Now, I've never seen as many. I've seen multiples, but I've never seen that hundreds. But here, the female is obviously laying an egg into, I think this might be Vallisneria, which is a common linear aquatic plant. And he's just up there holding on. And the next ones are the coolest. Slender bluets. Here they are. This was taken at Kittatinny Valley. The female laying her eggs down in here. But sometimes she decides, I think, see, this is the he-she thing. The plants are down pretty far. So that's her wings. Okay. So who's running the show? Is he pushing her down or is she pulling him down? I think she's got a lot to do with it when she sees there's a good plant down there. Anyway, that's one strategy. One strategy, cutting into plants that are on the outside of the water, others going like this, especially multiples. Doom, 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 doom. Oh, I don't do that. This is one of the river jewel wings. This is a female. Females, by the way, of the jewel wings have stigmas. Males don't. But they still, the river jewel wing has this patterned wing. The females climb down the stems of the water plant. They don't need the male. There's no tandem flight here. There's no attached males. They've already mated. But she goes down. Sometimes that photo was taken in 6 to 8 inches or 6 to 12 inches, probably. I'm not sure. This was on the Flatbrook, right at Steam Mill. And I got this picture. She's obviously laying an egg. Do you see a little bubble there? Well, they have timed this, and the female has stayed under as long as 45 minutes. Now, they have hairs on their body and the wings, and they apparently trap air as they enter the water. And I do believe they breathe through little holes in their body, spiracles or whatever. So they're able to stay down. I stayed 15 minutes for this one. I thought she's never coming out. I'm not waiting. But it's really a cool strategy. And what's he doing? He is flying around like crazy on the surface, chasing off any other males that will come by. Or he'll sit by the side waiting for another male, and then he'll go flying around. Because that's another thing with mating of damselflies or dragonflies. There's always bachelors, they call them, males who want to get in on the action, and they go and it's amazing. They have the poor mating people, guys in the wheel, they got to go somewhere else now just to get rid of him. Oh, terrible. But anyway, the males here are defending the territory, but she doesn't care. She's down 6 inches in the water. She doesn't know any of that's going on. Okay. Now, of course, the egg hatches into the same old damselfly larva picture. And then eventually, now remember, if they mated, let's say damselflies mated in a late season, August, September, this larva is going to overwinter. In fact, for most species, there may be overwintering larvae hunting all winter long down in the water. So these are not short-lived things when you think about it. They're short-lived as adults, average of 2 to 4 weeks maybe. And that's if they don't get eaten. So anyway, if you look down here, this is what this damselfly came out of. This is the exuvium. And the damselfly emerged and now is very vulnerable for quite a while. I don't even know what this is. But it's a uncolored up. Takes sometimes a few days to get color, but they can fly before that once they get their wings expanded. Here's another one. This one could fly, but still it's got that shininess to it, which we call teneral. It's a teneral familiar blue. It means it's more or less very recently emerged. Now, I'll just show you what a familiar blue would look like 2 or 3 days later. If you look at this spot there and this spot here, I think I'll convince you that it's probably the same species. There are a lot of them that look alike like that. But anyway, that's what the adult looks like.
Did you show that earlier, like way back? Did you show that same species earlier?
No,
Oh,
no.
similar.
Bluets are very hard. This is a blue, there are blue bluets, black bluets, and black and blue bluets. This is black and blue, but it's mostly blue. Here's an orange bluet. There are, the bluet name is for the color of most of them, but you do have others with mites, of course, with them too. Now, here is an exuvium, but that is not the exuvium of this damselfly. That's a dragonfly exuvium, and I don't know what it is. There are people who do know those things. They collect them. You can easily go to a place and collect 100 very easily and take them home and work on them and make a collection. You become an expert on exuvia. That's pretty cool. But of course, it's interesting because sometimes there are species that are known only from exuvia in a particular place. They've never seen the adults. Now, I gotta hope that the guy knew what he was doing. Down here is a damselfly exuvium, which may or may not be the one out of which this happened, because this guy's all colored up now, and so it's been a while. He's probably just using it as a hunting perch. Here's our river jewelwing. This actually was taken at Flatbrook when that, remember the female with just her wings sticking out of the female river jewelwing? This was her mate, and he was sitting on this and would zoom out and do all it. What I think I'm doing here, and I just got to check and see where I am in this. Oh no. Okay, we're going to take a very quick look at the 3 families of damselflies that we have in New Jersey. The first one are the broadwing damselflies, like the river jewelwing, like the ebony jewelwing, which most of you have seen. But have you ever noticed that if you change your position, what happens? It turns blue. Or if the ebony jewelwing changes, depends on the angle it makes to the sun. And it can look like that. That's not the same one. You get the idea. Ebony, the iridescence is incredible. Another broad-winged damselfly is the American ruby spot. You're going to see several of these in a little bit because I live 5 miles from a place where these are seen every year. And so I can go get pictures. The American ruby spot is a delightful river species. Second family of damselflies are the spreadwings, like the spotted spreadwing, which, believe it or not, is named for those 2 spots right there. That's a late flying spreadwing. And the slender spreadwing, which looks better on the computer than it does here, because the computer, you don't even see these wings. All you see is this, which really looks cool. But this actually is a vein, and the slender spreadwing has this white vein. It's the only spreadwing that has that hooked white at the tip. Doesn't always have it, but if you were to fold the wings back down, look how long the wings would only go halfway out the abdomen. All the other spread wings have longer wings with respect to the abdomen. And that's a very common species, probably our most common spread wing. Okay, the third family and last family is the most common family. They're called pond damsels. Pond damsels is a misnomer because a number of them are on rivers. All the dancers, for instance, are pond damsels, but they all breed on rivers. Bluets are one group. Dancers are another group of pond damsels. Can you make it out? This looks brighter than I'm used to. That's purple. Okay. Lily pad forktails, which are always on lily pads. Never seen them anywhere else. They look like several other things, but they have this downturned tip to the abdomen, which helps to identify it. The female, which is the next slide, when it's immature, looks like this. And it is not an orange bluet. The orange bluets have a different pattern back here, and there's some other things about it too. Plus, it's got a downturned abdomen. That becomes icky gray with a little green as it gets older. Fairly shortly. It's just these immature guys, gals, that are like that. Okay, now we're going to look at some habitats. We've got ponds, like Catfish Pond. We got I guess what I'm about to say here is that this is quiet water, right? And we've got flowing water. And then we've got water vegetated, marshes and swamps. And more so with dragonflies than damselflies. The odes have preferences for habitat. Well, that's not unusual, but the damselflies, I find, basically they can be quiet water species and running water species. And there are a few that are adapted to particular spots. With dragonflies, it's unbelievable. But I'll show you in a minute what I mean. Now, the next couple species, the violet dancer and the orange bluet and the eastern forktail are found everywhere. I mean, that they don't seem to have a whole lot of habitat preference. Most of the dancers, unlike the violet, are always found near running water. Violet can be there or elsewhere. All right, we got flowing water. Let's start with that. Here at Big Spring at Whittingham, which this looks really nice on the computer. But this water is just coming right out of the ground, bubbling out of the ground. A lot of you Sussex County folks all know this spot. And then you get seepages, which flow into rivulets, which flow into brooks. I'm making all this up, these terms. But really, if you're talking about dragonflies, this would be really important, because you'll get species, especially right here. I'm sure Mike knows this spot, right? You know where I am?
AT going up to the.
That's right. The Appalachian Trail above a Millbrook Gap. You go by this, there's a spring that comes out as you're going up the mountain, climbing up the Catfish Tower, if you know what I'm talking about. Okay, well, there are, along this, if you wait long enough, if you're Mike Tracy and have the patience of Job, you will probably see in late July or August, a what? Tiger spiketail. Okay, a rare jobby. He'll come noodling along like that. This is the habitat of tiger spiketail. He's not on the Delaware River. He's not on the Musconetcong River. He's not on even the Flat Brook. They're too big. This is the habitat. Damselflies aren't quite that picky. But I'm showing you these anyway, right? Wasting time. Let's see, where am I?
Yeah.
Okay, a brook. And then we get Flat Brook. And now we're getting a little bigger. And then we get the Delaware. Here's where the Flat Brook flows into the Delaware, by the way. A lot of you know it at Flat Brookville. The Flat Brook comes from the left into the Big Bend of the Delaware here. Anyway, there are a lot of damselflies that are adapted to running water. River jewelwing again. There it is. But now this one's different. Another jewelwing. This one's really rare. Throughout its range, it loves cold, clean water. And according to the superb jewelwing, the cleanest water in New Jersey is where? Running water. It's the Flat Brook. It's only, to my knowledge, been found on the Flat Brook. The superb jewelwing. It's long. Look how long its wings are. I mean, compare that to the river jewelwing. Uh-oh, there we go. Narrow, long wings. Here's the male. Doesn't look as long-winged, but it's a gorgeous, gorgeous thing and rare. And of course, the ebony jewelwing, very different. Ebony jewelwing can be found at almost any running water. And it's not terribly picky about how clean the water is. You can find this on some pretty low quality streams. I wouldn't think running sewage, but you know, but it can be found on pretty low one. Now, here I get the ruby spot itis here. This is the male American ruby spot on a rock in the Musconetcong River, just in Hackettstown. And here's a close-up, if that's not close enough. Look at the hairs. You know, I said before that the river jewelwing can trap maybe some air in the hairs as it goes under the water. It's loaded with hairs. And the female's not too shabby either. She's not as red, but she's really quite beautiful and close up. She's got a little something that she caught. Now I'm going through a few things that are definitely either restricted to flowing water or prefer. This is the stream bluet is very easy to identify. It's one of those bluets that's mostly black, and S9 is blue on top, but that's it as far as a ring or something. Here's our title page, Dusky Dancer. You saw them all doing the religious thing or the rock concert before, but taken alone, it's rather pretty. And it's definitely flowing water. Powdered dancers we've seen before, flowing water. Blue-fronted dancer we haven't seen before, but that's on the Musconetcong. Blue tip dancer is mostly in South Jersey. However, there are scattered populations in northwest Jersey. You can't miss this at the Wallkill River. You take the footbridge
near that parking lot where you take the footbridge over to way on the creek, is it, or whatever? Here's this purple part here, and it's got blue at the tip. But it's mostly in South Jersey. Blue ring dancer now is a real rarity. There are, I guess there are several spots. I know of one that I was taken to in Middlesex County. And that's the only one that I know about. It's a very uncommon or rare species in New Jersey. Okay, now we get smooth water, ponds and lakes. And we see elegant spread wings, very iridescent. Slender spread wings again with the white out here. These things, after you may see them at the ponds or shores of ponds, and then they go into the woods. I mean, you actually can see them along in swampy woods in the dark. Skimming bluet has the same habitat as the, oh man, lily pad forktail, and it looks like a lily pad forktail. You're sitting on a lily pad here. The turn down in the abdomen is not so severe in the skimming bluet, but right on S2, this pattern here is very different on the two of them, the lily pad forktail, skimming bluet, both could be in the same area at the same time. Another bluet, Thule bluet, which is about half blue and half black. Very easy to identify because of that. It likes the edges of lakes and ponds. White Lake is a great place for it. Vesper bluet also has been at White Lake. The tip for Vesper bluet, as you would think from the name, is that it is most easily found late in the afternoon when vespers are going on, right? Okay, it's a beautiful. Doesn't give this picture is not nearly as cool as the damselfly itself. Here's one we've seen before, the double striped bluet with the two black things, two black stripes divided by blue. And Hagen's bluet, or maybe Hagen's bluet, I don't know, is a northwestern species, often found at beaver ponds. It's not in as many places as it used to be, but it's a nice one. It's one you really should see what the circe look like, the claspers. Now we have a totally different habitat, and there are species that are adapted to this, or at least prefer this. This is a vernal pond. And we know how important vernal ponds are to amphibians. The frogs and the salamanders go for miles to get to these things to lay their eggs. Why?
No fish.
No fish. And there are certain damselflies that prefer no fish ponds. This is what the vernal pond, that's not the same vernal pond, but a vernal pond looks like in September. It's dry. That's why there's no fish. Okay, amberwing spreadwing is very often found at vernal ponds or fishless ponds. This was taken at a tiny little pond at Dennis Breedy's place up under the Kittatinny Ridge in Warren County. A lot of us know Dennis's place from NABA trips, from butterfly trips we've taken up to his place in August. Emerald spreadwing is a rarity. This was taken at Whittingham in a vernal pond. Did I skip over something? No, good. Sweet flag spread wings. Ooh, I need it. Can this be pushed up a little somehow? Okay. No. Okay, I'll just tell you. This is a tandem pair of sweet flag spread wings. Sweet flag spread wings love vernal ponds. They're not restricted to vernal ponds, but they love them. And what did I do?
Now I'm trying to.
Oh, very good. Thank you. That's perfect. I don't care about the upper wing. Whoops. Hi, Rini. Great, thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, sweet flag spread wings are not rare. Sweet flag spread wing males are impossible to identify. Unless you got it right up close, and even then, I've done it. I can't tell the difference between that and southern spread wing or northern spread wing. There's a whole lot of problems with the species. That with those two species, with sweet flag, there's no problem at all. All you got to do is find a female. Look at the size of that ovipositor. Here's her abdomen going here. From the abdomen on S9 comes this monster ovipositor, which goes well beyond the abdomen. So you find a female and you say, wow, that is a sweet flag spreadwing. Let's go find who she's hanging out with. And then you can say you took a picture of a male sweet flag spreadwing. And what's that?
Big difference in the size of the wings between the male and the female.
Length of the wings.
The size of the wings different.
The wing?
Wings.
Of
Wings.
the male and the female. Female has much larger wings.
I don't know. It may just be the angle. I don't know. But when you see the lookalike male mated, the ovipositor will come to maybe here. So this thing is a big honking ovipositor, and it's really a obvious thing. The other, I think this is the last one I have. The great spreadwing is also loves to be in fishless ponds. And in fact, I've seen it 3 places and they've all been fishless. Azure bluet is not restricted to fishless ponds, but prefers them. You will often find them in vernal ponds, for instance, but you'll find them other places too. Azure bluet is one of those bluets that's easily identified by all the blue. There's no other bluet that has S7, S8, S9, and a little bit of S10 with blue. Okay, marshes. I'm going to whip through these. Marshes are my big bugaboo with this. People try to get to classify marshes, you know, and it's really a continuum. I mean, what's the difference between this, which is an extensive cattail marsh, and this, which is a little dinky cattail marsh on a lake? Okay, the damselflies that breed in these marshes, they don't know the difference. They may be, you can call them marsh species or lake species. I don't. Anyway, this is a fen, a lake edge fen, and it has much the same kind of species that a sedge marsh like this might have. Of course, the definition of marsh, as I learned it, was a wetland with no trees and with vegetation, however. There are a couple damselflies that are restricted to these marshes. Sedge sprite, a delightful little thing. This thing could be 0.8 inches or an inch maybe. Notice the amount of blue there. In a minute, you're going to need to remember that. That's the sedge sprite male. Swamp spreadwing is totally misnamed. It should be marsh spreadwing. A swamp is defined as a wooded wetland. Yes? Okay. And swamp spreadwings are, I've never seen one in the woods. Another kind of marsh is a sphagnum bog. This is Cuser Bog. Everybody knows this up in High Point State Park. If you cut down the trees, it makes a beautiful open sphagnum bog. And sphagnum, of course, is a marsh moss. And this white thing here is wild calla, a nice, somewhat uncommon plant in Northwest Jersey. Now, why did I do this? Oh, a few species that like, not restricted to, but like sphagnum bogs. Eastern red damsel. New England bluet. You can always identify that by this little gash right here, the black gash in the side of S9, I guess. S8 or S9. Northern bluet, which we've seen before, but northern bluet and boreal bluet are totally lookalikes. I mean, there's nothing you can do with binoculars or in the hand even looking at these two species. Northern bluet is uncommon in northern New Jersey. That's the only place it is in New Jersey, is Northwest Jersey. But boreal bluet is only in 1 or 2 places it's been reported. And that's my boreal bluet. Alan Barlow said there was a 95% chance that was a boreal bluet. I sent it to him in Tennessee, and Mike and I now have our 95% rule. No, we don't know if this is a boreal bluet or not. This is really a sphagnum lover. You've got to get this really close, and my pictures, even closer pictures of it, aren't enough to really tell it. But there are things that really do love sphagnum though. Okay, I'm almost done. Quick trip to South Jersey. I still need a whole bunch of things down there. I don't go, but I need 3 more damselflies that I haven't seen and 5 that I haven't photographed. So Ramber's forktail, we saw the immature female eating the eastern forktail earlier. This is abundant in South Jersey, getting as far north as Middlesex so far. This was taken at Lily Lake at Cape May. We've seen the eastern forktail, which looks very much like this. This is a little bigger. This might be 1 1/4 inches, while the eastern forktail doesn't get much past 1 inch. But it only has 1 blue segment on the top. And if you look at an eastern forktail, you'll see it's got 2 blue, the 1 3/4 blue there. So eastern forktail can be found in South Jersey. It'll be worthwhile if you get into these things to go to a sand pond in the Pine Barrens. This is the East Plains. A lot of the distant pines are very, very low, not much higher than you. These ones around the pond are very big, but this is oops, I didn't want to do that, I guess. Okay, here's a Pine Barrens sand pond. This is, what is that? Yellow-eyed grass, yellow-eyed grass. I think it's Small's yellow-eyed grass. We used to call it Congdon's years ago. And the Pine Barrens sand pond has 2 things that are important. Here's another view of one. This one is a true sand pond because it doesn't have any boggy edge. It's just the sand substrate. And there are a couple damselflies that like the sandy substrate only. And then there are others that like the boggy edge to a sand bottom pond, but the edges get boggy. By the way, every one of these little dots of light color going way out into here, they're all rose begonia orchids. That's one of the beauties of going to the Pine Barrens ponds too, is there are lots of really great, unusual flowers. Here's another boggy edge, this to a stream. And these are bog asphodels, grass pink orchid. What's that white stuff again? I forget.
Gold crest,
What is it?
looks like gold crest.
Yes, goldcrest, which is a really cool plant too. Anyway, this habitat, the boggy edge will have certain damselflies. The sandy edge will have different damselflies. Here's a boggy edge one. I was taking the picture of the flower and this seepage dancer flew in. This is lance-leaved Sabathia. There's got to be a better name for this. I mean, it's grows only in the Pine Barrens in New Jersey. You got to go down, well, South Jersey anyway, in bogs. And this, to get a good picture of a seepage dancer, all you got to do is get out of the bog and go up to the sand road that's right next to it everywhere. And you get this. This is a South Jersey only, doesn't get up here at all. This does get up here. The sphagnum sprite, remember we had the sedge sprite and I said, look at see how much more blue there is on this one than the sedge sprite. We do have a few bogs, or more than a few, but it's uncommon in Northwest Jersey. This is all over the Pine Barren bogs. It's just a given. It's just all over. So is this, same deal. Citrine forktails, not really easy to find in Northwest Jersey, but in the Pine Barrens, boggy, muddy, sphagnous areas, they're easy. This thing always reminded me of one of the seven dwarfs, Dopey or something. Well, now this is lousy picture, but it's a really neat bluet. This is only found in the Pine Barrens and in the bogs. And it looks like, since it's rather large, this thing is 1.5 inches or so for a bluet. And it has really an elongated abdomen. You would think this would be really easy to photograph. It's not that it goes zoom, zoom, it goes. And it's impossible.
Never stops.
2 more pictures. An Atlantic bluet. That looks like every other bluet. Okay, that's one you really need to get, but it is all over. But this is a sand bottom one, not a bog one. And the reason I went down there was to see this. Scarlet bluet is at the southern tip of its range in the New Jersey Pine Barrens. It goes all the way up to Maine. But its main population is in the Pine Barrens of New Jersey. Everywhere else, it's much rarer. And I knew this was there. In fact, I went with George Nixon this day, and you know, it's just sand bottom, not muck. You're not going to sink down into anything, but you do have to go out to where it's 2 or 3 feet deep. And we got wet, but it was worth it just to get it on this. Thank you very much for your attention. Any questions, I'll be happy to try.
So let's just start with questions in the room. And we'll do questions on Zoom.
Yeah, and we're getting late.
Here at 8:30.
You have one question.
Jeff?
Yeah, first thing, I just, it was pretty cunning of you to wait till the last minute to say you had to wade into the water to see the things, but that's okay. That's good. Very cunning.
I don't have to, for a lot of them, you don't have to wade into the water,
But I did have a question, which was, I noticed that,
you know, but Do they do what, nobody knows if they have broods, you know, like butterflies do. I don't think we know that. I don't think anybody's studied that, at least as far as I know. But other ones just have a short flight season, you know, one brood either way, you know, yeah. Keith?
I've seen plenty of dragonflies where I've not seen any water source anywhere in the area. How far do these guys go?
That's
in the
a
water?
good point. Yeah, they fly quite a ways. And what's happening is the water, of course, is the magnet for breeding and laying eggs, et cetera, et cetera. But there was that other thing besides sex, food. And the best place along the Delaware to find dragonflies, and there are a lot of rare dragonflies and not that many rare damselflies, but is in fields within, let's say, a quarter mile of the river. Because in the fields, they'll find these things that they can eat. And it's, that's, you know, living in Metcon as we used to, we were on the top of a hill above Lake Musconetcong. I used to get in our yard familiar bluid, a number of real common damselflies, but we were a good quarter mile from the lake or close to it and way up higher. So these things will go in order to hunt, but they'll always come back, not necessarily to where they were born, but come back to water.
And some of the images of the wheel.
Yeah.
Sometimes it was shaped like a heart.
Yes, some people do have said that. That's not, you didn't just invent that.
The male with the claspers, do they have full control? Like they can release at any time? Or
Yes.
it is-
Oh, yeah. Yep.
So I have a real question, and this is maybe, as opposed to my last question. And it's for anybody, actually. So, because I had asked earlier about, you know, the females, can they say no? And you said, well, males just go in and grab them. And I just have a little bit of a hard time with that in the sense that I don't know other groups of animals where the females have little or no say in.
There may be-
And my question is, do other people know other animals where that is true? Anyone? I mean, it's hard for me to believe that the females have no say at all in who they mate.
Mike?
I've heard that the female sometimes will play dead.
Well, you're describing.
A dragonfly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, being actually a dragonfly flying with what looked like a dead one attached to it, it would drop it.
Wow. That's cool.
So,
Great
yeah,
adaptation.
but I mean, you ever see males try to mate coming into females and they don't succeed?
Don't some animals like the male will grab the female on the neck with their teeth and like, not dragonflies, but like, that seems like force.
Sharks, dolphins?
Yeah.
I don't know enough about sharks, dolphins.
Yeah, with the dragonfly, the female doesn't bring its end of its abdomen enough to meet segment two, it's never gonna happen
Well, that's what
anyway.
I'm saying, so.
Right.
But maybe,
Yeah, maybe-
they hang on long, if the male doesn't let go, they might figure if I ever want to be let go, I gotta just get it over.
Get it over with.
Oh, geez. That would be the control, Jeff. The control is that he can't necessarily control forcing the wheel.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Right.
That's
But he
what I'm,
can,
but
but we've all seen, I know Mike has seen the same thing I have at the same place at different times. There's a species of dragonfly called the, the spiketail, which is the spiketail activity?
Oh, the arrow.
Arrowhead spiketail. And both of us have seen females, the spiketails lay their eggs in mud. And she does it by flying up and down, it's like a pile driver. Boom, 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 boom. I counted something like 75 like this. And each time, I guess she's doing it. You saw the same thing several years later. And when I was watching, a male came out of nowhere, and she's already laying eggs now. He came out of nowhere and went wham, And I watched and they went up into the trees somewhere and I lost it.
But you don't know that, you don't know.
We don't
that.
know if
Oh,
anything happened.
Because with butterflies, you know, the vast majority of the time you see, you know, males trying desperately to mate with a female and she's constantly saying no.
That's right.
Right, you know, so.
They don't have grabbers.
Well, they are a little more gentle.
All right.
Did you want to get some, anybody?
Any
We gotta
other-
get going.
Any other questions in the room?
Overwinter as eggs or larvae?
Say again.
Do they overwinter as eggs or larvae?
Oh, I think as larvae in the water. I mean, doesn't go below freezing down there. in the
You
water.
get that big, you know how many instars they have, of larvae, instars? I'm assuming they grow and have to shed.
Yeah, I don't know. Sorry. You're talking about the larva.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, anyone on Zoom that has a question, feel free to unmute and ask your question. Okay, not hearing anything, so I think
Good.
that's it.
I
Thank
lost-
you
I
again,
lost the
Tom.